Yes, this is Elland Road. It's some place to come and watch a game of football, which is probably why it gets called a tough place to come and play football too. And Norwich found that out for themselves. They've lost here 1-0. Pontus Jansson's header from a free kick, which was sort of on the edge of the penalty area. That was it. That is what separated the sides. It was pretty straightforward in those terms. I know a lot of you may not have watched the game. Some of you will have done. Personally, my view, having watched the game, this was not a bad performance at all from Norwich City in many respects. They were confident, calm in possession, and I know these are things we've seen a lot of. They played the ball around nicely. They did create chances across most of the game. They chased it, perhaps quite late in the game, and also Leeds, Thomas Christiansen seemed to want them to shut up shop pretty dramatically, which kind of invited pressure, and we had almost 7-8 minutes of injury time at the end, so that almost invited pressure on Leeds a little bit. So, you know, there was a lot of good stuff from Norwich in terms of general play and the way they performed, but I think this is probably this is a reality check kind of game, because ultimately Leeds had a bit more quality. They created better chances. Leeds deserved to win it to a degree, I would say, because they created much better chances, and Angus was exposed as well as worked more often than Leeds were at the other end. So no real complaints there, and that's just what that also exposes in terms really is how far Norwich are off the top six and being a top six contender this year, because Leeds' extra quality, a team that did struggle like Norwich a month or two back, but they are now back on form. They're back to where they were at the start of the season, and they've got enough quality players to really to push on and finish in the top six as far as I'm concerned. So they did pretty well, and they shouldn't be too far off the playoff places, and they shouldn't really finish below the 8th they did last year over the course of the season. Sadly, as well as Norwich played in general play, and it was a really keen contest, especially in the second half, they just lacked. They lacked creating good enough chances to really push Leeds, and also defensively they just didn't quite have enough to really keep Leeds under wraps. They conceded the goal from a free kick. They came very close to conceding twice before that from similar deliveries. Sibiski, his crosses were lovely and they caused real problems. Sami Sais is a good player too and was neat and tidy. Alioski, all players that caused trouble. They've also got proper beef in the middle too. Anyway, that's enough about Leeds. But basically it showed how far Norwich are off, I think, finishing in the top six, regardless of how well they're doing. And you may laugh at that, but some people are still hoping Norwich can kick on. And I think, maybe some people are angry that Norwich lost 1-0 and feel it was the same sort of performance, but it wasn't. The effort was there. There was good quality at times from Norwich, but the reality is they're not as good. And I think ultimately that's what's played out today. So that's what we've got to deal with. A couple of things worth saying though. Maddison and Pritchard both started. I think you can see why that is going to work, but I don't think it's there yet, and I think it's going to take them a little bit of time getting used to playing with each other for it to really click. And there were a couple of times where it looked a bit rusty, so give that some time maybe. I thought Mario Vrancic was superb in the first half. I know he's been getting better, but this was it. It was a complete performance in the first half. It was a little bit quieter in the second. But then the other players sort of stepped up around him. But, much better from Mario. Keep doing that. The 4 games coming up where Norwich really do have to pack some points in, because, that should be the prerequisite, playing against 4 teams that are below them in the table. And they do owe Millwall a game as well as, of course, the 2 difficult games over Christmas away from home against really struggling sides. And I say they're difficult because of the circumstances. So there were positives. There were difficult bits as well. I thought Grant Hanley had one of his tougher games today. His distribution wasn't great, and he almost played in Sais at the end with a really poor back pass. So it was a bit scratchy around the edges. It's an interesting one. I mean, Daniel Farke was okay. He by the way, the goal, Daniel Farke confirmed that they actually switched to man-for-man marking today. So those people out there blaming zonal, you can't, because that's not what they did. So I'd like to see the goal again. I feel like I need to see a replay, because at one point it felt like James Maddison was picking up Jansson. So if that was man-for-man, that surely isn't right. So I'd like to see it again. It was a long way from the screen, which is up there, to the press box, which is up there. And in a place here with the view that you get from the press box, which is pretty shocking, you kind of have to make the best of it. So we'll see, but there you go. It wasn't zonal marking, according to Daniel Farke. I think that's about it, really. As I said, this was what it was, kind of thing. I don't think Daniel really changed it as quickly as I would have liked or thought. And he didn't, he did go for it. We had Wes Houlihan on the pitch, and it was a 3-5-2. Cameron Jerome was on the pitch with his new hairstyle. He looked pretty rusty, I've got to be honest, and maybe he's still recovering from his foot issue. It might still be a problem, but anyway, in the end, Norwich lost. They lost to a better side. Probably they had more quality, and now they've got 4 games where it's their turn to prove that they have more quality and pick up a barrel load of points, because that's really what needs to happen, and that's probably where Norwich are as a mid-table at the moment Championship side.